Welcome to Lakers Central, where I discuss the most famous basketball team on the planet with the biggest, brightest, and up and coming voices in sports and culture. Before I get into today's show, make sure you go to LakersCentral.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and subscribe to the newsletter. I've got some dope prizes that I'm going to be giving out to subscribers. They were supposed to be at my house today and yesterday. They have not arrived yet, but so goes the shipping situation that the country's in. But I got some really cool things coming forward. So make sure you check those out. Today I'm joined with Cody Hodak of Overtime Heroics and a couple other places. It looks like you've expanded their portfolio, man. So go ahead and tell everybody what you're doing now.
I'm trying to do a couple different things here. I got the YouTube channel and Overtime Heroics. I started writing some articles on Premium Hoops just to try and spread out the good name as much as I can. But I have a Ben Wallace series that just came out where I'm talking about one of his specific games from back in 2004. So I'm still watching a bunch of older games and still not into present day NBA mode as much as I'd like to be yet.
Yeah, I mean, one, it was a great video. Unfortunately, it was of 2004 when the Pistons beat my Lakers and kept Shaq and Kobe from getting their fourth championship as a duo. So I hesitated on retweeting it because it brought a tear to my eye. But it was great work, man. Really well done.
I really appreciate it. But I want to bust a myth right here because I'm going to come out with a specific video about one of those Lakers games. And Ben Wallace definitely could not handle Shaq one-on-one. I mean, it took a complete team effort to slow down that man in the paint. So you're going to see some better Lakers highlights coming up here.
Oh, we're looking forward to it. So, but Cody, I know you and I were chatting, and one of the reasons I wanted to get you back on the show is we've talked about this Orlando bubble that the NBA is going into. And first and foremost, they've kind of released the preseason schedule, if you will. And when I look at this schedule, I'm going to go through a couple of the games with you in a moment. But when I look at this schedule, people are asking me, will the games be televised? And I would imagine the NBA needs to televise the preseason games because that's just more attention. That's more money, more TV revenue for them. But what are your thoughts on, each team playing 8 games, and Lakers and Clippers they're featured right on, I think, opening night, I believe. I'm sorry, they're featured second night. I'm sorry, Lakers and Dallas. They play on the second night, but an opening night of the new season. So, just what are your thoughts about these 8 games that these guys they're going to be playing?
I mean, if I'm going to be honest with you, I still don't know if we need 22 teams there. I think we could have reduced that down more, try and get some of those tune-up games, maybe even cut down to 4 or something like that. So players can get back into the swing of things. But, if they're able to get basketball back, that's great. I'll watch as much basketball as they're willing to put out there for me right now. But there's definitely a few narratives and storylines that I'm really interested in following. And I think the very first game that they're going to be showing, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Pelicans and Jazz. If I'm right. And, they're definitely trying to put Zion front and center there because if we've seen the strength of schedule coming up here, Zion has somewhat of an easier path to the playoffs than some other teams in the West.
He does. I mean, I understand why the league wants to feature Zion. I mean, he's one of the best up and coming, young players. We didn't get to see a whole lot of him this season because of injuries, but what we did see was a guy that looks like he's going to be a legit player for maybe a decade or so. There are a lot of people that believe the league is trying to somehow position the Pelicans to sneak into the playoffs. And then you've got a LeBron Zion matchup, that would obviously get a lot of attention. But yeah, their strength of schedule, it's certainly weak. And, for the Lakers, we only have to win 3 games and then we lock up the 1 seed. So the Lakers, how much they care about some of these games, who knows? I mean, I've told people don't expect to see LeBron and Anthony Davis play 40 minutes. Don't expect, I think, to see any of these players play, 40 plus minutes a game. If I was, as a betting man, I'd be looking at maybe 25 minutes, maybe 30. But you've got to get all these guys back into shape, not just the superstars, but, the bench players, the role players. And they're bringing some of these two-way players in to help fill out the roster a bit. And so, do you think that you would see Giannis or Kawhi or anybody play major minutes coming into this?
No, definitely not. I mean, Giannis is usually pretty reduced. Even in the playoffs, that was always a point of frustration among the Bucks fan bases. Giannis was still playing like 32 minutes a game. Mm-hmm. But what I don't know is with like the Lakers, the Bucks, or some of these teams that have these top seeds locked up, what is their incentive to really play as hard as they can during these 8 games. I mean, it's not like the home court advantage isn't really anything. It's not going to be like being in the Staples Center or something like that, where it would really actually help you in the playoffs. So we'll see how much they actually play. Obviously, these teams need to get back into their normal chemistry. I'm really interested to see how some of these teams get back into it, how much rust that we see in there. And I think they're going to play as much as they need to shake off some of that rust. So I think really that's the biggest incentive is, LeBron and Anthony Davis will play as much as they need to get back into an NBA level pace.
What are your thoughts about one, Dwight Howard deciding to actually come to Orlando and play, but then even J.R. Smith now being a Laker?
I've always liked J.R. Smith. I definitely think he's coming to the end of his career. I can't really speak to how he's going to be on the court, but he seems to have good chemistry with LeBron. He likes to spot up and shoot as many threes as he can, and LeBron loves setting up as many threes as he can. And the Lakers needed a couple more three-point shooters, especially with Avery Bradley not joining them. But Dwight Howard, I think that shows kind of the complexity of this whole situation, is that players might be changing on a daily basis how they feel about it. One player might be really comfortable going one day and then start questioning it the next day. And Dwight Howard, I guess, just came to a different realization that he needs to be there. And I mean, if you look at some of the impact numbers, the Lakers were tremendous when he was on the court this last year. So I think it really helps them to have him there, because they didn't really have any other true backup centers besides JaVale McGee. I mean, unless Davis decides to switch over and play the 5 a little bit more, but having Dwight there definitely makes Davis happy on that front.
Yeah, I mean, Dwight's been great for us all year long. He's not Orlando Dwight anymore, but I think he's been fabulous. He's kind of revived his career. And let me ask you this, man. So everybody knew that, they were going to be going into Orlando around this time. Yet as teams start testing players and personnel, you're seeing cases of the coronavirus. And so do you think that, the country's been under some level of quarantine, depending on where you live, for almost 3 months. So when players and personnel are testing positive, and they knew they were going to need to, get ready for the season, are people being, even the players and personnel, being a little reckless? I mean, they had time to prepare. So how are they still popping up, with the coronavirus when they knew this was coming and you need to start quarantining at home? And how is that possible, do you think?
I'm drawing on my own experience right now because I'm still taking it very seriously, but I still need to get groceries. I still go and get takeout. I still take walks and stuff like that. And I haven't shown any symptoms. I haven't tested positive or anything at this point. So I'm feeling pretty safe with what I'm doing. So if I'm in that sort of flow where I'm maybe going to the store a couple times a week, I'm getting out, driving around to things like that. Maybe if I'm an NBA player, I'm thinking, I don't need to strictly quarantine. I can just keep doing these more safer activities, and I can just get by with it. So maybe it's just, it just shows how many more of us out in the public have it than we might think right now. But I do agree with you that it's a scary situation. I think the Bucks arena the Bucks practice facility was just shut down. They didn't say how many people contracted it. The Nuggets facility was shut down. I think I saw that Spencer Dinwiddie officially stated that he's not going down to Orlando anymore. And I mean, if we look at the numbers, it kind of scares me when we look at how Florida is doing. I think right now they're like the second most at risk state in the United States. The 2 counties in which Disney World resides, Osceola and Orange, are both, they should be at stay-at-home orders right now if we look at some of the data. And so, I don't know. It's really tricky. I'm not going to tell these grown men what to do with their lives. I'm not going to tell them how they should handle their job. But I'm of the skeptical mind that I don't believe that the NBA is going to be back until I am sitting on my couch watching a game on my TV.
Yeah, one of the things that's helped give me more insight is that Michaela Andrews from ESPN, she's down there in the bubble, and so she's been detailing what it's been like from a media experience. And I said before I saw that, I thought, okay, this bubble could still be one of the safest places in the country, because there is going to be a lot of isolation. There's going to be a lot of tests these people have to pass to come in and out of there. But, she's detailed how when you first land there, you take a test, or I think you quarantine for 3 or 4 days. If you're healthy and not showing symptoms, then they let you in. You get a green wristband, and then you never have direct contact, or at least the media does not have direct contact with the food providers. Everything is dropped off at your door. I think they're doing the best that they can given the situation. Now, as you mentioned, the Bucks had to shut down their facility because someone tested positive. Spencer Dinwiddie, I think his second test came back positive again. So he,
Yep.
doctor said doesn't make sense. Bradley Beal, I think he's going, but he's not going to play, which I don't see why you're going. Even to cheer your team on. I mean, the risk of even being there doesn't make sense to me unless you're playing. The Lakers, Lionel Hollins, he was medically red flagged. And so not that he, from what we understand, he doesn't have it, but something came up where he might be too high risk to go. So he's not going. And then we're starting to see pictures of the WNBA bubble. And I've seen great pictures. And then I saw that one of their laundry room, which I don't know if that was just at a certain location for, but I don't know what to make of all of it, except for I think that these leagues are trying. And I think once you get in there, I don't think you can shut it down unless there's like a massive breakout. Or maybe a superstar gets it.
Yes, I agree with that. If someone like LeBron or Giannis get it, they might have to start rethinking things. But yeah, I want to touch on that WNBA thing. Mm-hmm. I think it was Kayla Johnson, maybe, or something like that. I think she tweeted out some of the images that she was receiving from WNBA players. There was like a mouse trap up on the wall. There was like a worm thing on the ground. Some of the food looked like the Fire Festival from a few years ago. Like it wasn't a good situation. Obviously, I also heard that that's not how everyone's experience was down in the bubble yet. So I don't want to portray it as a complete hellscape at the moment, but some of that was definitely a little sketchy for sure. But I'm thinking ahead to next season right now. And in my mind, I think it's going to take a lot of energy to plan how next season's going to work out, because I don't think we're going to be out of this pandemic by that time. So is it worth the while to start planning this bubble in Chicago? Is it worth the while to really struggle with all these fine details down in Orlando? And are we going to have enough time to start planning for an 82 game or a reduced game season coming up? And so those are some of the questions in my mind. I don't know if it's too late to even move the thing. If I were trying to plan the thing, I would try and get it maybe to a safer location. I've talked to a couple other NBA folks who are into following the pandemic, and they've suggested a place like Hawaii or something like that, where they can be even further away from the continental United States. So I don't know. It's tough. Maybe I'm being too down on the whole thing, and maybe I just have to trust that what they have is going to be the best situation that they could come up with in this short time frame. But I'm still pretty skeptical of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, I think it's way too late to move it. I mean, before they opted to go to Orlando, Vegas was an option. Houston, I'm trying. Who am I missing out? Atlantic City. They tried to get into it. I mean, at this point, I think it's too late. And ultimately, I think that Disney, ESPN is such a partner of the NBA. I can't imagine them moving it at this point just because of the financial implications. But then, Florida itself has really not dealt with the virus well at all. I mean, this whole time we've been dealing with it, Florida's been a shit show. And so, it's still. I just read this today that Disney employees won't be tested as they come in and out. I still can't wrap my mind around that part. It just feels like there's no way in the world that's true. I mean, but that's still being reported, and that seems a bit ridiculous. But I think all of this one of the reasons I think they're trying to get the bubble to happen is that this is almost like a practice test for next season, because we are not going to be in the stands next year. I mean, maybe the NBA tries it. Maybe there's some owners that want to try it, but the tickets I had to the Lakers Wizards game, I already got my money back from SeatGeek for those. I mean, even if the season does happen next year and we're back in the stands, I'm not going. And so I just think all this is a crash test. And I wonder if even next season, rather than have a normal season but without fans, maybe they just have the different conferences playing in certain locations. I don't know. I mean, but what do you think? I mean, what do you think next season looks like?
I'll be completely honest. I don't even know where to start with that. I don't know if they're going to try and do 82 games. I know there's always talks of trying to reduce the number of games in a season, maybe down to 70 or 63 or something like that. Maybe this is the time to start experimenting with reducing the number of games. But yeah, I don't know, how's travel going to work? Are they all going to be in the same place? Is it going to be like like multiple bubbles and those are the only places that teams travel to? Is it going to be something like on an island like in Hawaii where they can be much further away from the pandemic? I don't know. There's a lot of things out there and I know nothing at this point.
Well, speaking of multiple bubbles, we've gotten word that the NBA is going to do a second bubble for, I don't even know how else to say it, the loser franchises. I mean, look, they're going to do this in Chicago for the 8 teams that will not participate in Orlando. And so you're looking at Charlotte, Chicago, New York, Detroit, Atlanta, Cleveland, Phoenix, Minnesota, and Golden State. Let me just start off by saying no way in the world Steph Curry and Clay goes. No way.
No.
But what are your thoughts on this second bubble? What do you know about Chicago in terms of how they've had to deal with the pandemic? What do you make of all this?
I'll be honest, I don't know the numbers for Chicago right now. I can't cite that off the top of my head. But man, this just seems like a weird situation. I had some quotes that I took from that article that I found either interesting or really funny. First of all, the detail that I found really funny was that 7 of the 8 teams was in on the call and that the New York Knicks were not involved with that call at all. So there's the Knicks continuing to be the Knicks.
Yeah, I was going to say that's so Knicks, right?
Yeah. So yeah, they're somehow just not even involved. I wouldn't be surprised if they just didn't show up at all. But something that I found interesting was that Dwayne Casey, the coach of the Pistons, was saying that he took an informal poll among coaches not in Orlando, and it sounded like a lot of them just wanted to do sort of their own sort of practice facility and own bubble rather than going into a whole new bubble. Because yeah, I think guys like Steph, Clay, they have no reason to come back and play. Even players that we don't view as true superstars. I mean, why would Zach LaVine play for the Bulls? You know, why would Terry Rozier play for the Hornets? Like, what's their incentive?
There is none. I mean, this part of it this just seems like you're asking for more trouble, I think. So part of it to me says they're probably going to televise all of this stuff also. So there's always the money grab. And when I say money grab, I don't mean that to be disrespectful, because I understand the NBA needs to hit, typically 70 games to get their TV money. It's not just the players. Everybody's dependent on all this revenue coming in. So I understand why they're trying to make this work. It's just when I look at these teams, like, everyone's going to pay attention to what happens in Orlando because the best teams, the best players are there. Even if this stuff is televised, is anyone watching Charlotte, Cleveland, Detroit? I mean, maybe Atlanta because Trey is Trey. Yeah. But I mean, is there anybody outside of Trae Young on these teams that would make you tune in? And if that's the case, then why not just let these teams just isolate in their own areas and work with their own players and go from there? I don't see the reason for this.
That's exactly it. And I don't know the details of the number crunching and how it would affect the salary cap over the next few years if they didn't play these games. So maybe there's something I don't understand in the weeds there, where if all of these teams don't play their required games, everyone's salary cap is going to dip over the next couple of years. I don't know. We still don't know how that's going to impact it. But I know from my side of things, I know we're both NBA junkies, but I'll be honest with you, I'm probably not going to watch a single game in that Chicago bubble at all, unless they're way before the Orlando games. But I'm either going to be watching all of those Orlando games, or I'm going to be catching up on old Orlando games that I didn't get a chance to see. But yeah, I have no interest whatsoever in what happens in those games.
Yeah, I think, I mean, not that Adam Silver listens to my podcast, but I would say if they're going to do the Chicago part of it, they better somehow broadcast those games or package it in a way where it's kind of like that's the leader games or the quote unquote JV games, and then the varsity team. I mean, you've got to give people a reason to actually watch. And do you know where they're going to actually play in Chicago?
I don't know.
Have they chosen? Because I didn't see an arena, so I'm thinking. So are you going to play at the Bulls Arena, which I think American Airlines? I don't even know what the Bulls Arena is.
Is it
called.
United Center now? United
Center.
Yeah.
Are they going to play there, or is it? I mean, I know there's multiple arenas there for various sports, but I don't see why you do this. And Rudy Gobert came out recently and said that even though it's been basically 3 months, he's still dealing. His lungs aren't 100%. And we knew as this thing got worse, we knew that even if you were healthy, you could potentially have, long-term issues. And Rudy Gobert is in the prime of his career, a young man. He is healthier than 99.9% or, people on the planet. And he's still having lung issues 3 months later. Um, this is a tall ask of these guys and all the additional personnel that's going to go into these two bubbles. They're putting a lot on the line, as well as the WNBA players and any other league that is doing this. I think Major League Soccer might be doing it also.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think in Disney World with the NBA. So there's a lot of moving parts. And I wanted to ask you about Gobert. Um, I'm sure you saw that there's new reports that there were reports already that him and Donovan Mitchell weren't getting along. Then the pandemic stuff happened, and now we're hearing that Gobert is upset that Mitchell has the ball in his hands so much. And I'm just like, all right, man, like you guys really don't want to keep Donovan Mitchell. I mean, what do you make of that nonsense?
Well, first, I want to go back really quickly to
Sure.
Gobert still feeling some of those symptoms. I think even beyond just, he said slight inflammation in his lungs. I think he was quoted as saying it feels like he has ants in his feet and that his sense of smell isn't completely back.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
want to make a statement out to all of you. If you think that you are in better shape than Rudy Gobert was when he contracted the pandemic, go ahead and go out there, get it. I don't really care. But for everyone else, like, come on. If a professional athlete is feeling those symptoms, it's going to wreck anyone else that that isn't up to that endurance standard. But I think that what you're referring to is that Tim McMahon piece that came out on ESPN just maybe a couple days ago, maybe even yesterday. I don't know. They've always seemed to have some sorts of issues between each other. I think Gobert is a bit more of a direct and a sarcastic individual. And I think it was even said in there that Donovan Mitchell was a baseball guy up until the time he was like 16. So he's still trying to figure out the playmaker role. So I don't know. After Donovan Mitchell caught COVID-19, after Gobert tested positive, it sounded like they didn't talk for a full month. So I don't know. I wrote down like a couple things that I'm interested about watching once things get fired up here again. And to me, that Jazz relationship is right up there at the top. Is this going to show it all on the court when they're out there, especially when they don't have one of their offensive players in Bojan Bogdanovic for the rest of the season?
Well, I'm wondering if Gobert is still having lung issues. Is he even going to play? I mean, if maybe he's not testing positive anymore, but if he feels like he's got ants in his feet and inflammation in his lungs, there's no way he can get on the court, right?
And I think that's something he was addressing, is he didn't even know if it was just full anxiety of feeling it, being like, I don't know if it's just that I've been out of the game for so long that I haven't gotten up to my usual game shape. So I don't know. We'll see. This is my thing where I'm saying that it changes every day. Maybe he gets down there, plays a game, and he's like, wait a second, this isn't good. I don't know what to do at this point. So, we'll see about that.
I think everything the league is trying to do is basically, protect the salary cap. Now, that isn't to say they don't care about the players, because if something happens to the players, well, then there's no NBA. So I know they want to do their best to keep them healthy. But, when the league signed that TV contract a few years ago and it spiked, and that's what allowed Golden State to get KD in 2016, there a number of players, they benefited from that spike, right? For the Lakers, unfortunately, Timothy Mozgov and Luol Deng got such huge contracts during that spike.
Yep.
But then if the league revenue tanks next season, is there going to be cap soothing? Or are they going to just, whoever's a free agent next year, you just screw it. You're the one that has to eat that. I mean, there's just so many moving parts that I wonder if they're just so afraid that salary cap's going to take a hit. And we know it is going to take some kind of hit, whether it's because of Daryl Morey's China comments or it be because of the pandemic. But then if fans aren't in stands next year too, what do we do with the cap? I mean, I don't think they know.
No, they definitely don't. I haven't seen any reports about it. I tried digging around and stuff, but I'm not even seeing this being discussed in any sort of serious way. But it's going to be serious, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting to say the least, and it's a storyline. I think once basketball starts, I think a lot of those things will probably go out the door. People are going to want to see how these players look after being, 3 months without basketball. And in some cases, some of them couldn't even work out for the duration of that time. I mean, NBA has some great rules, but then they have some weird rules. Like I think it was Jason Tatum that said he didn't have a basketball hoop at his condo, and the Celtics weren't allowed to get him one because that violated the rules. And I'm just like, yeah, if that was, whatever they would have spent on the basketball hoop somehow went into the cap. And I'm like, given the circumstances, if players don't have hoops, which that's surprising in itself, but some of them don't live in, 30,000 square foot mansions like LeBron. They live in condos and townhouses that are still very nice. If the team says, well, given the pandemic, let's get these guys some training and the hoops and all that, I don't see why the NBA would frown upon that.
I completely agree with that. I think I remember it was early on. I'm sure the situation changed, but I know Giannis is living in an apartment in Milwaukee, and he was given like an exercise bike by the Bucks, and he had some dumbbells lying around. He's like, I'm staying in shape as well as I can. It's like, well, I don't care how much you pedal on an exercise bike and do some jumping jacks holding dumbbells or whatever else. That's not going to get you into NBA shape. So yeah, not everyone is like LeBron that's going to have a full facility in his backyard, essentially. And I remember thinking that when watching the horse tournament, that felt like lifetimes ago. But I think Trae Young was going against Chauncey Billups, and Chauncey Billups had this beautiful court in the backyard. He was shooting out there, and then Trae Young had one of those plastic looking hoops that moved 3 feet if he was off a little bit. So yeah, we'll see. That's going to be part of the rust conversation when players come back.
Yeah, no, it is. Cody, let's close out on this. People have talked about this will be an asterisk championship, and I'm of the mindset that it's only an asterisk championship if the Lakers win. If anybody else wins, no one's going to call it that. But I said today, whoever wins this will have gone through something that no other champion has went through. And there are champions who have lost players and won. There are champions that have had, maybe deaths in the organization, but nothing like this. And to me, I wouldn't fault any team for winning this particular ring. I mean, to me, I would celebrate them even more. I could find more issue with the Raptors winning the championship last year against a 30% Golden State Warriors team than I can with whoever comes out on top of this, Lakers or otherwise.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about specific narratives that would determine whether or not someone would count it as an asterisk championship. I think the biggest one is if the Rockets were to win it. I actually think I have a sneaking suspicion that if this goes forward, that the Rockets are just going to catch fire for a couple of games and they're going to walk away with the championship, and the NBA fans are just going to be so angry about the whole thing, and then it'll have the biggest asterisk. So I will admit that if the Rockets win it, then it will definitely be an asterisk championship. But even if like the Bucks win it, I still think there's going to be in something like Chris Middleton or Giannis where they're feeling like, sure, we won, but that didn't feel completely right. So I agree with you that I think this should be counted as a normal championship because everyone is going to be under the same conditions. But at the same time, this is so different and so just away from the norm of what we usually see in an NBA championship. And people have an asterisk next to the 99 season, right? That was like 50 games. So this would definitely have an asterisk for most people.
Yeah, I have a friend that's a Spurs fan, and I used to tease him that that Spurs championship was an asterisk because they only played 50 games, and Shaq needed 50 games to get in shape, so it didn't really count that year. But look, they won, and whoever wins this thing, it's going to be tough. They're all under the same circumstances, like you said. And what happens if it's like this next year? So we're going to have 2 asterisk championships? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I would much rather have any championship with an asterisk rather than no championship whatsoever, because it would look super weird to be going through Basketball Reference and see 2020 or 2021 with no champion. I don't know, especially when we're looking at players like LeBron, who are, we hate to see him say it, but he's nearing the end of his career. He only has so many more shots to go for this championship. So I don't think it would be fair to count it against him, or at least not even count it in his favor if he didn't get the credit if the Lakers end up winning.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to seasons, I've never seen anything like this in my 38 years. I've never seen a controversy with another country. I've never seen, the protests and social unrest given this specific circumstance. I've never seen a pandemic of this nature. I've never seen a retired player like a Kobe Bryant pass away under those circumstances. It wasn't like he was 70 or 80 and had this long life. I mean, that impacted the NBA as well. This year has just been crazy. And I hope that 2021 is better, but the league is going to have to figure out what are they going to do going into next season. And I suspect they won't start the season until December, maybe January. And even then, maybe we're looking at a 3 to 6 month, a truncated season, but everything just keeps getting pushed back. So
yeah, I completely agree with all of that.
Well, Cody, thank you as always for coming on the show. Again, man, you do really great work. I really enjoyed that Ben Wallace video. It was really good. I'm glad to see you spreading your wings and doing all these different things. So tell folks how they can find you and what you're working on next.
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Cody Hodek, CodyHoudek. I'm over at Overtime Heroics, where I'm a senior writer, so you can find some of my articles there. But also make sure to check out the Overtime Heroics NBA YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow that as much as I can. That's where I'm putting most of my creative energy. And like you just said, I have this Ben Wallace video that just came out yesterday. I have a couple more Ben Wallace videos planned over the next few weeks, so definitely keep an eye out for those.
Check out his work, man. He did, like I keep saying, the guy does great work. I'm not just saying that because he comes on the podcast. I really enjoy his work. Check out Overtime Heroics as well. Those guys, Jeans, that he's head of the basketball department, they do really good work also. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Laker Central 365, or you can check out my personal at Laker Central CEO. Until next time, folks, we're out.